On Saturday the 17th of June, earlier this year, a young man named Keshaun Williams was last officially seen leaving a local house party in Cleveland, Ohio, but after 6 months, he is still yet to be found. He was reported missing by his concerned mother around 3 days later, but then, upon investigation, a truly horrifying detail would soon emerge. According to an eyewitness, a person matching Keshaun's description was supposedly seen inside of an unidentified vehicle, tied up and badly beaten. However, despite the case quickly being upgraded to a possible abduction, after over 6 months of investigation, there have been no further sightings of the teenager, leading many to wonder, what really happened to Keshaun Williams? And why are so many people going missing in the state of Ohio? Keshaun Williams was born on the 9th of December in 2007, where he grew up with his loving family in the city of Cleveland, Ohio. Little is known about his younger years, but as Keshaun moved into adolescence, he developed an incredibly charismatic personality, which combined with his disciplined work ethic, attributed to his success within the sport of boxing. However, alongside his athletic passions, Keshaun was also a dedicated member of his local church, which he attended every Sunday with his family, and it was here that he developed his religious drive to be a good person. In addition, to add to his long list of qualities, Keshaun was also a very respectful individual, with friends at school claiming he would stand up to bullies and provide support to those who needed it. So, it has always been clear to everybody close to the young man that he had an extremely bright future ahead of him. However, despite the optimism held by his family, it would seem that this bright future would suddenly come into question when Keshaun failed to return home on that fateful day in June. On Saturday the 17th of June, the popular teenager was spotted leaving a local house party located in the 5700 block of Fleet Avenue in Cleveland, Ohio. He then called his mother, Cherise Snowden, at approximately 10:38 p.m, stating that he was on his way home and would be seeing her soon. By all accounts, he then wandered down the street towards Gertrude Avenue with some friends before they eventually parted ways, assuming Keshaun would be heading home as discussed. However, as the night progressed into the early hours of Sunday morning, Cherise began to get concerned, as her son had still not arrived home despite promising to be back soon. She then called his cell phone several times but was unable to get a response, and rather harrowingly, the calls would ultimately start going straight to voicemail, leaving Cherise overwhelmingly sick with worry. However, despite her rising concern for Keshaun's safety, Cherise decided to hold off on reporting him missing, for reasons currently unknown, but it is assumed that her motives behind this may have been that she was likely disturbed by the possible reality of the situation, and so instead decided to hold out hope that it would only be a matter of time before she heard from Keshaun once again. But as the days quickly ticked by, the situation only escalated further, with her son failing to make contact with anybody since the night of his disappearance. So with no other options, Cherise finally turned to the police to file an official missing person report for Keshaun Williams. On Tuesday the 20th of June, the Cleveland Police Department were alerted to the disappearance of Keshaun Williams and immediately sent a team of officers out to his last known whereabouts to see if they could uncover any leads. They also conducted several interviews with friends of Keshaun that were supposedly with him that night, and they provided several eyewitness statements. One partygoer expressed that they saw Keshaun with some friends leaving the party, but unfortunately, this would not lead to any further information, as these friends were unable to reveal with absolute certainty what happened to Keshaun after this time. However, it was insinuated that he somehow broke away from the group, with one friend later saying that he assumed Keshaun was just heading back home. Further searches were also conducted in the surrounding area of Keshaun's last known whereabouts, and surveillance footage was checked to see if they could trace the direction that the missing teenager had taken after leaving the party. But unfortunately, once again, no evidence would emerge, leading the police to go back to the witnesses for further questioning. But what would soon be uncovered would reveal a harrowing detail about the possible whereabouts of Keshaun Williams. On Saturday the 24th of June, the Cleveland PD issued an official Amber Alert in response to a piece of evidence provided by a key witness. According to their statement, this witness claimed to have seen a young man matching Keshaun's description inside of a black Jeep, tied up and badly beaten, before being driven away into the night. So as you can imagine, due to the severity of this testimony, the police felt that the missing person investigation needed to be upgraded to a possible abduction, as the teenager had now been missing for a week, with the only possible sighting being extremely nefarious in nature. A few days after this update in the case, the Cleveland Police Department also revealed to the public that an anonymous donation of $15,000 was provided as a reward for any information that may lead to the discovery of Keshaun Williams. And with this, his family were given a new lease of optimism that some evidence would surely come forward. However, despite this huge increase in awareness for Keshaun's disappearance, no further evidence was ever provided, leading the case to eventually turn cold. Now, unfortunately, this is all we know about the case for now, but Keshaun's family have recently come out to say that they are still not giving up hope that the young man will one day return home, as despite the lack of leads, there is still every possibility that there could be a happy ending here. But in order for that to happen, we need to keep talking about this case by continuing to raise awareness and keeping Keshaun's name in the headlines, as I fear if we don't, he may just become another statistic to add to the long list of missing people from Ohio. So with that, let's get into some of the potential theories. Now, as I normally do in these videos, I would prefer to start with a more optimistic view of the situation, which would allude to the fact that Keshaun may have simply decided to run away from home, and is therefore still out there somewhere, fending for himself. However, as far as optimism goes, I will just say now that the following theory is not the strongest in my opinion, with my reasoning being that the evidence available does not seem to point in this direction. But nevertheless, I feel it should be noted that the sighting of Keshaun inside of the car where he was seen tied up and badly beaten was never actually confirmed by the police, and the black Jeep he was supposedly seen in was eventually identified and did not reveal any further leads. So with this in mind, it would appear that the only information we actually have to work with is that Keshaun left this party at around 11 PM and has not been seen since. Therefore, I suppose you could argue there is still a chance that he simply decided to leave his life behind and is choosing to remain hidden on purpose. However, with no sightings being confirmed of the teenager for over 6 months now, regardless of why he left, the likelihood of his safety is wearing incredibly thin as the days go by, as even if Keshaun is alive and living out on the streets, there is still a very good chance that he could be in a lot of danger. Also, after such a long search, there is virtually no way he could be hiding out at a friend's house, as he surely would have been found by now. So the only other option that remains is that Keshaun was the victim of an abduction. Now, just before I get into this particular theory, I should say that during my research, it was surprisingly difficult to confirm Keshaun's last known whereabouts, as it was never actually confirmed if this party had taken place on Fleet Avenue or Gertrude Avenue. However, due to both locations being mentioned, I think it would be safe to assume that he was likely spotted on both streets at some point during the night, so it would appear he was likely wandering from one road to the next on his way home. Nevertheless, given that he was last reported missing quite late on a Saturday night, it certainly wouldn't be too much of a stretch to say he could have been intercepted by somebody driving by, who then proceeded to force the young man into their car. But if this was the case, who would have had the motive to carry out this act? Well, my initial thoughts were that it would have likely been a predator who was acting in the area at that particular time, who just happened to be on the prowl. But on second thought, most abductions are actually committed by people that know their victims, so perhaps this wasn't just a matter of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, but rather Keshaun was the victim of a meticulous plan by somebody who knew the teenager very well. According to some sources, Keshaun may have been kicked out of the party he was attending that night, So could it be possible that the same individual that ordered Keshaun to leave the premises may have also played a hand in his eventual disappearance? Well, I must say there is no hard evidence to back up this theory, but it certainly raises the question that somebody may have had a problem with Keshaun, and then could have called an accomplice to rough up the young man as a means of revenge. But maybe, after taking the beating too far, they were forced to do something drastic and eventually hid the evidence of their crimes. Again, let me just clarify that these are just my own personal thoughts and have not been corroborated by anybody as far as I'm aware, but I sincerely hope that this was an angle that the police took when conducting their investigation. But moving away from this particular angle, if the person responsible isn't somebody who attended the party that night, who else could have had a reason to kidnap Keshaun? Well, perhaps it really was a predator that just happened to be passing by and jumped at the opportunity, noticing Keshaun walking alone in the dead of night. After all, it's no secret that Ohio has a history with predatory behavior, with multiple people going missing in recent years from the Cleveland area specifically. But if this is what actually happened, why have we been unable to find Keshaun's remains for over 6 months now? Well, one answer could be that the perpetrator is keeping the young man as a prisoner in their home or some other nondescript location, while they try and figure out their next move. Or perhaps, after kidnapping Keshaun, the suspect then decided to sell him into the underground world of human trafficking, which is a very controversial take, I know, but one that I feel we need to keep in mind, especially given the rate at which people have been disappearing as of late. In fact, recent studies have shown that over 1,000 people have been declared as missing from the state of Ohio just this year alone, with at least 50 cases being documented during the month of September. But given the severity of these statistics, you would think there has been a tremendous amount of investigation into why this is. However, despite what you would rightfully assume, there appears to be a lack of information on the subject, which has arguably sparked a lot of controversy towards the situation. The only real explanation provided by the police is that during the summer months, when it is warmer and children experience the freedom of not having to go to school every day, these kids develop an urge to run away from home in order to avoid returning back to school, or more simply just to leave their home life behind. However, with hundreds of disappearances also occurring in the winter months, this explanation could be viewed as nothing more than a cover-up from the perspective of the public, as it would appear that there is a much greater problem lurking beneath the surface that needs to be addressed. It's well known by the local community that there has always been a strong predatory presence in Ohio, with many people coming forward with stories of strange men luring young victims into their vehicles over the years. However, it must be said that these stories are statements that have no evidentiary backing, so we need to make sure that we remain vigilant before believing every comment we read. But even when evaluating this problem with a more open mind, I still feel it is worth a mention that Keshaun is just one of many teenagers who have disappeared from Cleveland, Ohio specifically, never to be seen again, which really does beg the question, what is happening to these kids, and why are so many of them disappearing without a trace? Well, police and news reporters would lead you to believe that this epidemic is purely the result of poor home life, leading children to run away, and it is during these bouts of absence that they are sometimes picked off by suspecting predators who are lurking in the shadows. But with little to no evidence proving this, I would argue that this epidemic may not be as mysterious as it seems. Let's be honest, in modern day society, surveillance cameras are everywhere, especially in cities like Cleveland, which is a predominantly urban area. And yet, despite this advance in technology, these cameras always seem to be useless when it comes to providing footage of disappearances and abductions, almost as if the police are purposely trying to fumble these cases. Now, just to clarify, I'm not saying there is a guaranteed conspiracy behind these disappearances, but with the number of missing people rising in recent years, despite the improvements in surveillance, I feel you have to question what is really happening here. Also, another controversial mention is that the available statistics do not confirm which missing people are officially classed as runaways compared to the real abductions. Plus, the cases do not seem to be categorized by race, gender, or age, so it's almost impossible to understand the true nature of these disappearances when you look at the information that is made available to the public. But anyway, before I get too carried away here, I should probably hold my tongue for now until we have more evidence to prove a wider conspiracy here. But if you would like me to make a follow-up video where I delve a bit deeper into the missing people of Ohio, please leave a like on this video and let me know in the comments below. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Also, if you found this video interesting, please feel free to check out the playlist on screen now, where I've covered a range of similar cases, such as Jamel Lee Hyung, who was another young person of colour that suddenly disappeared a few months ago, never to be seen again.